So with that, as an African American, of course, this is a huge conversation in our community and in the world. And I've heard that not only for myself and you've said, I believe, of course, but I've had a lot of friends and a lot of family tell me that they're just emotionally drained, which is what prompted me wanting to do this with you as a professional, because we don't know George Floyd personally, but we feel this deep pain as if we did. Why is that, do you think? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to In My Opinion, where we discuss current events in layman's terms because knowledge is power. And you will soon find out that I have an opinion about everything. Today, we have a professional here with us. She is my sister. We always have conversations about social justice, about our people. And I thought what a great thing it would be to hear from her professional viewpoint of the trauma that we as African Americans specifically have been facing with the trial of George Floyd and what have you, and many recent police killings that have happened in just the week that we've planned this call. So today we're talking social justice and Black trauma with my sister, Quinn Flowers. Sister, welcome to In My Opinion. Please go ahead and let these people know all the letters behind your name, because my sister is educated, okay? Educated.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for having me, sister. I just appreciate you having this public platform to hold conversations like this. I am a licensed clinician. I'm a social worker. I have my MSW from Howard University, HU, and I have been licensed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I'm also certified as an adolescent trauma professional. So those are all the letters behind my name.
All the letters behind her name. So as I said, I brought my sister here today because I wanted to discuss with her the traumas of the Black community in the wake of the most recent trial with George Floyd. We have heard the verdict. Derek Chauvin has been found guilty in all 3 counts, and he will be sentenced in a few weeks. But justice, so to speak, was served. And I want to know, first and foremost, what are your thoughts on the Derek Chauvin trial and how he was found guilty and what that means to the family and what that means to you?
Yes, that's a good question. What it means to me, I'll start there, is that accountability was served. Not necessarily justice. I think that we saw the posts on social media about justice being served. And it might feel like that to some, but for me, I feel like it was just an accountability. We held someone who committed murder accountable for their actions. It does not necessarily vindicate all the other victims who were murdered and had wrongdoings against them. So I just really do feel that the family, of course, may have some peace because of this. There was a victory, and we appreciate that one victory, but it's just, I can't help personally feel that yet again, even though we have this one victory, so to speak, and this one person held accountable, all the countless other wrongdoings that are still, happening to Black and brown people. So I feel kind of indifferent, just to be honest with you. I really do. I feel indifferent. I don't know how to feel. One day I might be okay with it. Other days I'm just like, that's not enough,
Right. And it's interesting because I was running an errand when you called me and you told me, hey, they're about to give the verdicts for the trial. Yeah. And I was very nervous and I felt this flood of emotions. And I really thought, I was really under the impression that I would be excited and cheering. I guess, I assumed that I would, but when it came down to it, when they said the verdict that he was guilty, I didn't feel excitement. I almost kind of relived the pain in a sense of when we found out what happened to George Floyd, because what happened to him was so unnecessary. Like you said, I didn't feel joy, I felt pain. Like we've heard countless times, he should be here with us today. This shouldn't even be something that we've even had to deal with or his family has had to deal with. So I totally relate to that. So with that, as an African American, of course, this is a huge conversation in our community and in the world. And I've heard that not only for myself and you've said, I believe, of course, but I've had a lot of friends and a lot of family tell me that they're just emotionally drained, which is what prompted me wanting to do this with you as a professional, because we don't know George Floyd personally, but we feel this deep pain as if we did. Why is that, do you think?
I think the traumatic experiences that are all too often shared experiences with Black and brown folks, especially Black people, African Americans, we resonate with people, right? Yeah. We resonate with our families. And so we look at these harsh, disgusting videos and we see our brother, we see our uncle, you know, we see our nieces, we see the children, especially those who work in like schools, we see the babies that we work with and how helpless they are and how powerless they truly are. And then you have people that are in positions of power taking advantage of them, right? And so it hurts, it's deep rooted and it hurts. I think that just to be a human, just life right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're still very much in the middle of a pandemic.
Very much.
And just to be human right now, dealing with struggles at work, those who are in school, struggles at school, and as a parent, thinking about whether your child should be in person or continue their schooling virtually, even people who have lost loved ones due to COVID-19, right? So when you add on top of that, the increased amount of hate that exists just because Black people exist, it really can become overwhelming and just downright exhausted at times, you know? Also reminds us that the world is and continues to be very unpredictable. And in that of itself feels unsafe. And just yet again, we get another reminder on top of another reminder of how negative this world can be and how negative this society can be. And so we have to do our part to show up as our best selves to create a sense of safety in a very unsafe environment.
Absolutely. That was so beautifully worded. I love that. I love what you just said there. So how do you think that we can emotionally feel safe? Because right now, I think a lot of people have a lot of scars that have been opened. I know for me, it's reminiscent of like when Biden and Harris were running for president and vice president, and people kept saying, I'm not voting, I don't want to vote, and those people aren't for you. I was angry. Like I had to log off social media because our ancestors died and they made leaps and bounds doing the hard work, and they bled and they died and they suffered for us to simply have the right to vote, because that gives you so much power. The white people know that, but you know, we're hundreds of years behind the 8 ball, so we're just starting to know that as a people. But we have to get into good trouble, because I feel like I'm fighting for my grandfather, I'm fighting for my cousin, I'm fighting for my sister, you know what I mean? Simply because we're Black, and we are the only ones that know the struggles that we've experienced. So for me, it's reminiscent of what the trauma that we've endured for all these years. And I don't feel safe as a Black woman walking in a store anymore. I don't feel safe as a Black woman walking next to my white brother or sister, that they're not going to spit at me or my child. And I know that sounds crazy, but this is what is in my mind. So what is your advice for somebody in that situation who just doesn't feel safe, or they're just, I hate to say, I hate white people. We have a lot of that going on too, because they don't feel safe because we've never been safe.
Yeah, it's a really good question as well. I think that a lot of people are feeling that way, especially our young folks, because they're impressionable and they're frightened, just like anyone in this situation, which is a normal emotion to feel. So that's what I want to first and foremost explain, that feeling afraid should be normalized.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of hatred out here, right? So what do you do to safeguard yourself? Or, hey, know when I need to not walk by myself because I don't know if my coworker or a stranger on the street is going to attack me, let it be physically or verbally. Have those things put in place that you're taking care of yourself, whatever it is, those safeguards, so that you know that you are okay. And that's just, you know, well-being, you know?
Right. Self-care.
Also too, thank you. Self-care. very important. And you see that on social media, right? About like 5 steps for self-care, 10 ways that you can take care of yourself, which is wonderful. But also know that no matter what platforms we love to go on for social media outlets, or even within our own family members, like our auntie or big mom, that are very wise and they give great, advice, but it's not a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Okay. So I just want to make sure I say that out loud. We are normalizing, not have to, but we are normalizing mental health in the Black community.
Amen.
I think, yes, and I'm so grateful to that. We have people like Taraji P. Henson, who has her mental health agency. Absolutely. We have the NAACP, we have the Urban League, we have Black Lives Matter, all these social justice agencies who are embedded in communities that give you access to mental health professionals. So that's just one thing I have to say when it comes to self-care, baby, get you a therapist.
No, I say it and it doesn't get said enough. And I'm so happy to be able to tell you this. Thank you for your service, because you guys should get paid just as much as the surgeons do. Because if you lose your mind, you lose it all. If you don't have your mind right, we hear so many things that happen to people in life. And I know as a clinician, it was bipolar, it was whatever. But we ignore that because in the Black culture, it's looked down upon and it's shown as a sign of being weak, when it's not. It's the smartest thing you can do. We have suffered through generational trauma. So if my grandmother was an angry woman, then my mother, I'm not being specific anybody, but if my grandmother is an angry woman and my mother is an angry woman and I'm an angry woman, there's no surprise there. It's transferred trauma and emotional baggage that has been carried, which leads me to my next question. Generational trauma. I talk about generational so much, but generational trauma specifically is huge, in my opinion, in the Black community. Where do you think that stems from, and what does that mean?
Trauma is described as an experience that happens in an individual's life that creates serious harm, right? So whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, but that's something that was deeply disturbing. So that's trauma.
Okay.
We experience trauma of any kind when we are emotionally or physically have to react to something, right? So this can look like anxiety, trouble sleeping, feeling disconnected or foggy, confusing, like you can't focus, even intrusive thoughts, right? So when you're trying to be positive and you're trying to have a positive outlook on life, but yet you be like, dang, I can't help but be negative. I can't help but to always see like the negative aspect on a certain situation.
Yeah, I know it all too well.
You and me both, okay? It's a daily struggle. Even withdrawing, and I raise my hand to that as well. Some people use that as a defense mechanism, like, hey, this is too much for me. I feel always overwhelmed. So I retreat and I withdraw from others. And children, it could look like them attempting to avoid school. It also looks like they're always having headaches or tummy aches or something like that, problems sleeping or eating, trouble focusing, and even it comes out in anger too. So a lot of aggression when it comes to children. So that's trauma and how it may look and displayed. When it comes to generational trauma is transmitted through the attachment of relationships from a parent to the next generation, right? So, and that is a significant impact on an individual across the lifespan, including dispositions to further trauma. So this means that we can view the psychological effects of trauma being transferred from one generational to another. Generational trauma is a traumatic event that began decades prior to our current generation, and it has its impact on individuals, their understanding, the way that they cope, and also the way that they heal.
Absolutely.
So that's very important, right? So in a family, this would look like a family that might be emotionally numb. Those families that are hesitant to talk or just don't talk at all to each other. They don't discuss their feelings or anything like that, right? So we all kind of know family members that might, appeal to. Other families might not be trustworthy. They don't trust other people. So you'll have a friend that's like, how come I can never come over to your house? Well, because outsiders are not welcome in.
Right.
And that's just the rule in the household, right?
Literally and figuratively. They are not welcome. Mm-hmm.
Other families may have that continual conflict within the family unit and outside too. You're like, why are they always fussing and fighting? That's a defense mechanism as well. Like, that's the impact that trauma has on family members, not just individuals, but the family as a whole, right? So some families might seem very anxious or overly protective of their children and the family members, because again, that's a way to keep them safe. That's them safeguarding their babies. They don't want them to be at, within the elements, right? They don't want someone else to hurt or harm them. So let me shelter them so much so that I am like overly protecting them. In some ways that can be harmful.
Also, to piggyback on that, and I've shared with you this for years. And let me just say this really quickly. This is my god sister, but I don't even say the god sister part. I have known this woman since I knew myself. We grew up in Syracuse, New York together. Our moms were best friends. She lived in the apartment beneath me, and this is my MFing sister, okay? And if you know me, you know who Quinn Flowers is in my life. And so, with that, you know my story, and I've shared it with, in my opinion, before, but losing my mother at such a young age, and I wasn't necessarily really young. I wasn't 5 or 6. I was 11 or 12. And so that was very traumatic for me. And I've learned as a parent over time through you that I have an unintentional habit of being a helicopter parent and kind of overprotecting my daughter because I want to protect what was lost for me. Like, I love our mother-daughter relationship between my daughter and I want to hold that close. But sometimes I think it'd be a little bit smothering because, like, I'm super scared of COVID. And we went in public the other day and they were at a family, gathering, and she goes, "Mommy, you should go have fun too." And I was taken aback. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I was like, okay, I will.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead, Mommy. Have some fun. It's okay.
I'm trying. But I'm protective of my child because losing my mother to this very day, and I'm 32 years old, it feels like it happened this morning. You know what I mean? So that is my example of generational trauma because I was traumatized, and now I'm kind of trying to reel it back in because I don't want my grandkids to be overprotective in the sense that I am because they're scared that something's going to happen to their loved one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say this. I appreciate you addressing that and saying it publicly, right? Because people need to hear that. Again, I think that a way to heal trauma and heal generational trauma and hurt, trauma and just in general, is just to be very transparent and normalize that. Be a model, an example for other people. You as a parent, you're normalizing some of the shortcomings that you have. You're human, right? And so your daughter is seeing that, hey, my mom is, number one, addressing the issue, and then she's doing something about it as well. So you're teaching her how to be that woman, how to show up for yourself before you can show up for other people and provide love and support and care for other people. So that in itself is going to help heal generational trauma.
Thank you, girl, because it's so funny that you say that because I always say to her, like, a few times a week, that's our thing in addition to our prayers. Who comes first? God, then who? You. I'm like, no, not mommy, you. God, then you. I said, guess what? It's God, and then mommy, and then you. If mommy's not straight, you're not going to be straight. And that's something that I've learned from you and my loved ones, because all my loved ones know that I would run myself into the ground as far as motherhood goes. Then it was like, hey, woo, you need you time, you need self-care, you know what I mean? So thank you. That lets me know that I'm on the right track, because I am not perfect. I'm a work in progress.
No one is. No one's perfect, okay?
No. And that's the most humbling thing you can ever say.
Yes, and I love how you said about, you know, if mommy's not okay, then, you know, you're not going to be okay, because I love living by this little quote of, you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Baby, that's my favorite thing to say, because I always say and because I had to say it to myself through people who are like, I'm going through a breakup, I don't know what to do, like, and I'm like, well, you seem empty, baby, because this person you're filling this person's cup. Who's filling your cup? And I always say that to people, because I wasted 8 years of my life in a relationship pouring my whole first years of adulthood into a man, and I was giving nothing to myself. And I literally I was 8 years behind those who I grew up with in school, because for 8 years I was focused on this person and making sure they're great. And it was like, well, you're pouring into them, who's pouring into you? So you just hit the nail on the head. That's so true. I have a question, and I know this is like off the Richter scale a little bit, but I'm a little off the Richter scale. So,
okay.
What would you advise someone who is in a hostile situation with a person that's not a person of color, and they're attacking you simply because you're Black? Because my first reaction is, I'm gonna beat your ass, because I'm gonna beat your ass for my slave ancestors, for my oppressed ancestors, and for all my brothers and sisters. Like, not just for me. It's like, you know, I know that, you know, it could probably take somebody mentally outside of the scope of things, but for me, it's almost like I'll be waiting. Like, I'll watch videos on Instagram and everything, and I'll see these people spitting on us, calling us niggers and all this kind of stuff. And for me, my immediate reaction is I want to react and I want to beat their ass. So to someone on one end who wants to beat their ass, and to someone else who just wants to remain silent, like, is that healing? Because for me, it feels like it's healing. Is that holistic?
Listen, you know what? Yes and no. It really does depend. I think it's situational.
Yeah.
If you are let's just keep it real. If you are in a hostile situation and your life is at stake, you are going to either, you know, it's the freeze or flight situation. You're going to freeze up, or you're going to take off and hit action, right?
Right.
So if your reaction is to freeze, then hopefully you have the wherewithal to grab your cell phone. It's 2021. Grab your cell phone. Hopefully somebody else around you is there too.
Okay.
They have their cell phone. You have the wherewithal to say, hey, can you record this?
Yep.
Somebody record this right now. You know, I'm being attacked.
Oh, yes. Good answer.
Use your voice.
I wouldn't even be thinking about that. You're absolutely right. I would not even be like, oh, let me get my phone, or hey, can you record this? I would just be focusing on the fight or flight, just doing the fight. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't. So that's such good advice. Okay, I love that. I'm sorry, go ahead. I love that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because here's the thing, you know, the witnesses of George Floyd's murder had the wherewithal, and they were shocked too, right? At first, you're like, what am I looking at? What am I staring at? No, this can't be. But they were strong enough and brave enough to pull out their cell phones and start recording. So we're living in a day and age where everybody got their cell phone in their hands, right? Or very close to them. So somebody's going to be able to whip that cell phone out real quick and record what's going on, right?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That is a measure to protect you first and foremost.
Yeah.
If it escalates and they're physically in your space and they are, you know, launching at you or hitting you or spitting at you or whatever, do what you got to do to protect yourself. I'm not advocating for violence by any means, but you have to keep yourself safe. And if that means that you need to defend yourself because you're not the aggressor, you're the victim in this manner, then you have the right, the authority to defend yourself, whatever that looks like. And I'm gonna leave it there.
Okay, I like it. I can say that. Okay, so that leads me to my next discussion point. Recently, Micaiah Bryant, 16-year-old child in Ohio, was murdered by a police officer. And I don't want to like get too deep into that because I'm going to have a segment specifically to discuss that. And I don't want to cry because it hurts. And the reason why it hurts is something that you touched on earlier. And you said that, you know, the new age thing is to take your phone and record. The little girl who recorded, I think it was a teenager who recorded the George Floyd murder, that was her first instinct. And she was what they call, Generation Z? I think it is. Is that what they call them?
I believe so.
Okay. She's a part of Generation Z, TikTokers, you know, she's a part of that group. And I just love and respect the younger generation so much because they're going back to our roots and they're getting confrontational, as the good Auntie Maxine said, because that's what it takes. And they're so smart to say, I'm gonna record this. And I love them for that. I want to touch on Micaiah and the younger generation for a moment, because that is what you specialize in, as you said, one of many things. What is it like to be a teenager in 2021 from your viewpoint? Because I think that, a lot of people have the old school mentality of they're just kids, they don't have stress. But as being someone that works in a school as well, I see that these babies have just as much stress as we do. But I'm not a clinician. But correct me if I'm wrong, but they have just as much trauma, if not more than we do, because they don't have a choice but to be put in horrible situations. So what is life like for a teenager? What stresses are they under? Because Micaiah was jumped and she was trying to defend herself. And it just automatically, I just felt like so heavy with the thought of, what has this baby been through? To feel like she had to pull out a knife to protect herself. I felt like she was scared. And it just made me think about all the babies in our schools and what they go through every day.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy. That's really heavy because it's close to my heart. It's what I do. It's what I specialize in. I've been working in a school setting for 9 years. This coming fall will be my 10th year working at the same high school.
Okay,
and
awesome.
You know, you build connections with these families, you build connections with the students. And so it's heartbreaking when you see a child, because she was a child.
Yes, she was.
Who was murdered trying to defend herself.
Absolutely.
These teenagers, from my experience and what I observe, and for what I hear from my kids, they're going through a lot. They're going through a lot. And you're absolutely right. When it comes to adults, sometimes we kind of forget how it was when we were kids and when we were teenagers. Mm-hmm. And even though the older generation may not have had the internet at their fingertips when they were kids, it still doesn't take away or mean anything less than the stress that our kids are dealing with now.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I feel like they're dealing with, in some ways, more.
I agree.
Yeah, right now, let's keep it real. The last year and a half, we've been in a pandemic.
And we have kids that have been in unsafe home environments. Although we want to be safe for the pandemic, like, let's not forget those babies that are in foster care or that are suffering from abuse at home, and going to school was their safety net. Now, I don't think school should be open yet. I think that, I want to be clear on that. But it is still extremely unfortunate the way that these babies have to live.
Yes, you have to take all of that into account. It's a lot. Like you just touched on, we don't truly know the family dynamics of some of these children in their home environments, who they're staying with. They, may go to auntie's house, godmommy's house, uncle's house, and what's going on in there too, what's going on in those four walls. That's cyberbullying, right? People post pictures, whether it's flattering or not, and it lives on the internet forever. And so if you have something that may not be as flattering, or someone says something that's not really nice, and then someone sends it to another and sends it to another, and all of a sudden it's exploding and you can't escape it, because every time you turn your cell phone on,
it's
boom,
crazy.
Here's something that's embarrassing to me. Boom, here's something that's very hurtful to me. And what do you do, right? So I think our kids deal with a lot. They deal with not having proper outlets right now to express themselves. They're dealing with loaded family issues, and maybe them not feeling like they have a trusted adult that they can go to kind of voice what's going on or talk about what's going on. So it's very important to have support networks that you can go to say, hey, sis, I'm not feeling it today. Like, this is not a good day for me, you know? And then have that other person be understanding and accepting to say, you know what, it's okay. I'm here. I can listen to you. You know, I can't do much, but I'm here for you.
Right. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Okay. So I do want to know your thoughts, just as a Black woman, not necessarily a clinician. What are your thoughts on reparations? Now, for those of you who do not know, reparations is compensation for insult or injury that took place. And I believe the Asian community has been compensated and given reparations. I believe the Jewish community has been compensated and given reparations. The Native Americans have been given reparations. Everybody but one of the number one Don Dadas. We first and foremost deserve reparations. Native Americans, I'm not even going there. They totally deserve it. But right after that, it should have been given to us, and we have yet to receive it. You captured us, stole us from our homeland. You took those of us who you thought were weak, threw us in the ocean, had the rest of us in our own feces and throw up and blood in the bottom of a boat, treat us like animals, make us your slaves for 200 some odd years. Then you oppress us, and then at this very moment, you have a huge amount of people in our household locked up. So in my mind, we more than have been insulted or injured. What are your thoughts on reparations, just as an African American?
Well, when you put it like that, give us our money, you know, absolutely. If you were able to apologize, right, for a lack of better words to sum it up, apologize financially to these other groups of people who you have wronged, that have experienced types of violence and injustice that they have been exposed to, then why not us? Because it's clear, it's dated, it's recorded in history, it's still going on today. The amount of exposure of violence and injustice and damage that has been done to the Black community. Where is our apology? Where's our financial apology? We need to be able to benefit as well from a country that we literally helped to create, we built.
Yes, we deserve them. I already know. But do you think we're going to get them?
First of all, yes, give it to me. Yes, give me my 40 acres and a mule.
Period, because you promised it a long time ago.
Pay my student loans off, okay? I need help. Help me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Help me, I'm poor. Absolutely. Like, yes. On a positive side of things, I do want to let you know that I believe Illinois and even Senate, there are discussions of reparations. Biden has mentioned it a couple of times, so at least we're getting there. But this is a fight that's been long overdue. But we are on our way, because you know my favorite phrase from Biden: the African American people have my back, and I'm gonna have theirs. So I'm just waiting for my money, because in my mind, that means I'm gonna get reparations.
I mean, that's what I hear. That's what I hear when he says that. So I'm just being patient. I'm waiting. He said it. And so again, when it comes to holding people accountable, okay, we already saw this week that we will be holding everyone accountable for what they did, what they do. So Biden, we're going to be holding you accountable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for doing this with me today, Sissy. Do you have any closing thoughts? This has been great. Do you have any closing remarks?
Yes, absolutely. First and foremost, thank you again so much for inviting me here. I think that a way that we heal from trauma is also by resistance, right? Mm-hmm. And so a form of resistance is using your voice. And this platform that you have, this public platform that you share information, a wealth of information to people that you can reach worldwide, not just here in the United States, is absolutely key. So thank you so much for holding a space like this for people like us to be able to connect and resonate with. So thank you for that. And also too, I just want to encourage everybody, if you have a question about what to do after you heard the verdict, the guilty verdict, on Monday, what else are you supposed to do, right? Do you start marching? Do you protest? What do you do? Well, one thing that you absolutely 100% should do is call your legislative office, right? They are trying to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, right? Go on your state department website, depending on what state you live in or jurisdiction you live in. But please, again, the name is the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. We have to do something to defund or dismantle the systemic racism that's deeply rooted in policing, right? We need to come up with better measures and better safety procedures when it comes to public safety. So this particular act has to be voted on yes. And you do that by calling 202-499-6085.
Thank you. That was like, out of all the information we discussed, if y'all didn't hear anything else that we've said today, information that was given, the phone numbers, because a lot of us don't know how. We say we want to help and we want to do something, but we don't know what the steps are or the phone number. So very simply, the number is right above our heads. I'll have it in the bio so that you guys have it. Please share this video so that people are able to have this wealth of knowledge, not just Black people, all people, because this is a fight of America. This is a fight of the world. This injustice and racism. Thank you so much, Quinn Flowers, for coming on the show today. It has been my greatest honor to have my big sister on the show. I'm so happy that you took the time out. I know you have an extremely busy schedule out here saving lives. So thank you for coming to this space. And we are definitely going to have you back because you're my favorite clinician.
Aw, thank you. I loved it.
I love you. Also, please give us your Instagram handle, your Facebook handle, or where they can reach you. And also, I also want to shout out the Healing Garden. My sister also has her own business because she's, I want to say that bitch. I say that bitch. It's my show. I'm gonna say because my sister is that bitch. Okay, and she has the Healing Garden where she says sage, smudge stick, and I use them all the time. I'm obsessed. So please share that. Put that out there.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So the Healing Garden is a holistic retail store. I sell my products on Etsy. So I have Palo Santo, I have sage. I also will be putting out soy candles as well. Everything has been ethically resourced. So I just want people to have other options out there if they are meditating, if they are trying to just balance themselves, right? If they want to clear their aura, if they just want to just remove negative energy. Smudging is a great way to remove that negative energy. And so the Healing Garden is definitely here to help you through that. So thank you for mentioning it. Of course. And also, if we can have your Instagram handle, please. Okay, so my Instagram handle is quinnflowers.licsw.rpt. Got it. Thank you guys so much for watching. In my opinion, as we said, the coronavirus is still very much here and alive. So please remember to wear your mask. And as always, remember the world is small. Do not let little walls cage you in. Bye.